Hey team, this week we talk to Darren Bazeley. Darren is the head coach of the All Whites, and in this one we chart his journey through the lower leagues in England, 450 plus professional games, some of the best stories. We talk about Chris Wood and his meteoric rise, the All Whites, the state and the future of football in New Zealand, and so much more. Yeah, we started as a football podcast back in 2019, and it was awesome to go back to our roots. We even started this one talking about Stephen playing against Darren in Papakura, which was weird. Difficult times. This episode was brought to you by TAB. Download the new app today and get your bet on. Darren Bazeley, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Good to see you both.
Yeah, good to see you again. I wanted to start by talking about us in a former life, and I was going to say it's a bit weird us sitting here with all these different hats on, us as podcast hosts and you as All Whites coach. Because I still vividly remember playing against you in the National League around 2009. I was a striker for Waikato. You were a defender for Waitakere. And I remember drifting over to your side when like a
I'm
goal
not sure
kick.
what's coming out.
Well, yeah, I don't want this to be disrespectful anyway, but I thought you were a better option than big Neil Emblen, 6'9". I was like, I'll drift over to Baze. And I remember you being so cunning. I just got totally owned. You had a little trick where like a second before I was about to jump, you'd give me a little sort of tap on the shoulder and then it would like totally throw me. Yeah. And I just remember that whole experience thinking, who's this guy? How does he know all these tricks?
Who's this old guy?
Yeah, but that was my introduction to Baze. You probably don't remember me at all.
I'm sorry, no.
It's an interesting dynamic though, because you had a storied professional career, and then you're up against guys like Stephen in places, again, no disrespect, like McLennan Park and Papakura, or playing national league games at Ngarawahia. Yeah. Was it hard to get up for those sort of games when you were playing here?
I think it just was what it was. I was pretty old. It was at the very end of my career, and I was probably holding on to keeping playing and trying to keep enjoying my football, which was hard at times. I didn't, once you get to an age and your legs are not what they were, and your body's not doing what you can remember it used to do, is a bit more difficult. So I think I only played for the 1 year here, and then I was done.
But that's what, in sort of studying up on you, like you were quick, right? Like you were quick. And then at this stage of your career, still dominating the National League, but the speed of thought was what kept you ahead. Yeah,
I mean, when I was growing up, I was a winger or a striker, growing up. And, I was pretty quick. I used to win all those races that they used to have. And you remember they used to do the Coca-Cola 100-metre sprint and one player from every football club. And
the Match magazine or Shoot or whatever.
I had to go and do that for Watford at the time, and we went down to, I forget where it was. I think it was down Crystal Palace athletics track, and it was like one player from each of the London clubs. It was in like the sort of London heat, and I remember I finished 5th in that heat and never qualified for the final. Yeah, and the final was I think they held it at the League Cup final.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day I was quick, but when you would remember me, I probably wasn't.
So that year when you played, we also were all together in Honiara, bizarrely. Ooh. I was working for OFC doing like live blogs of the game. Shay was head of competitions and you were like mid-30s, just absolutely like losing your mind in the hottest game of all time.
I've blanked that from my mind. It was, but I do remember a few moments. We actually lost that day. It was a horrendous game. The heat was horrendous. Honiara. It was a really tough place to be, and we just ran out of legs that day. I remember Embers that day nearly died in the change room half time.
We're laughing, but it was legit.
He nearly did. Yeah.
Had you ever experienced conditions like that?
Nothing like that. And they sort of told us what we were going into, but you couldn't prepare for that. And there was 30,000 people there, and they were just all on that bank and in the trees and everything. It was crazy, crazy day. The one thing I remember from that game, actually, I used to have Jason Hayne, remember Haney, and he used to play in front of me. I was playing right back, he was playing right wing, and it was second half. It must have been mid-second half, I reckon, and my head had gone. And I remember passing him the ball and him driving forward with it, and he sort of cut inside and then just passed it outside, like expecting me to have overlapped it. And he sort of turned and went, where are you? And I was like, what? Are you crazy? I'm like 38 and you want me to overlap you? And we sort of like both lost our heads, and he got a bit closer. I remember actually clipping him around the ear. Like, it's probably the first time I'd ever hit someone in a game. And everyone was like, "Oh, are you allowed to do that?" I was like, "Oh, could get sent off there." And but no, it was it was a crazy day.
Heat sounding around.
Yeah.
I remember like a roof collapsed and there was a whole bunch of people
on the bar. It was the toilet.
And then everyone kind of like looked and there was a whole bunch of shrieking and then just the game carried on. Like,
I think they used the timber to make like a makeshift grandstand afterwards. It's an experience definitely playing football in Honiara.
But I remember the second leg, it was a bit colder.
Yeah, 5-0 I think you won.
Bashed them up and qualified, yeah.
So just speaking of the OFC Champions League, around that same time, I think fast forward one season, you'd retired, you're assistant coach. And we spoke about this on our episode with Neil Emblen, which for the diehards is episode 5 of the Between Two Beers podcast.
I know where this is going.
Yeah.
And Stephen had made a play to come and play for Waitakere United. And I feel like it was a mid-season transfer and he had ambitions of playing in the OFC Champions League. And I won't finish the story, but from your perspective, what happened?
Well, yeah, I got signed. Waitak was stacked that year. They had Roy Krishna and Alan Pearce and Ryan DeVries, and I was brought in. And I was getting a few minutes off the bench, and then Embers, he made me get my passport for the O-League game coming up. And I was all excited. I'm going to make my O-League debut. And then I got a call about a week before. He's like, we can only take 15 on the plane. I've decided to put myself. He's about 45 at times. I've decided to use myself as the spare striker.
Yeah, no, I remember. I'm not sure if that was budgetary though.
There's big empty seats.
I'll try and help you out and say it was more about the budget than actually the ability.
Well, the other claim to fame that Stephen has in his football career is that he played with a very young Chris Wood, who is doing amazing things. From your perspective as the All Whites coach, how great is it having your captain doing these things at the English Premier League?
What Woods is doing now is amazing. It's something I'm not sure people really understand the enormity of his achievement, of what he's consistently doing, and maybe never happen ever again. We may never have a Kiwi playing at that level at the top of the goal scoring charts at this stage of the season for a long time. So what he's doing is amazing. It's put football on the map, even more. There's a lot of things going on at the moment with Auckland and the A-League, and the All Whites doing pretty well, and hopefully a World Cup. But what Woods is doing is now it's put football on the map in New Zealand, and getting a lot of recognition for it, which is great. He deserves it, But he's scored goals everywhere he's been. But this is a special period for him, yeah.
I think through the course of this episode, we're going to hear what that path is really like to make it. But I don't know if people really understand the graft he put in, in 18 through 23. So right now he's 33, the best year of his career. But he had 6 loan spells after he was with West Brom. So at 18, he went Barnsley, Brighton and Hove Albion, Birmingham City, Bristol, Millwall, Leicester and Ipswich Town. The mental fortitude to move your life around to these different teams, and you're competing in a dressing room with people who don't want you to come and take their job, and you're just getting moved around and around and around. How many people have the backbone to just keep going? How many people would just quit?
I mean, that's part of Woods' presence, his mental strength. He has that ability to do that, and to grind away, knowing that he's got this inner belief in himself. That's why as a striker, it's really good, because he misses chances, but it doesn't affect him. And then he just knows another one come in, score the next one. So, I mean, that probably helped him going through those periods. It's tough when you're trying to break through. You do have to go and trial and go on loan. But man, he just had so much confidence in himself that it was going to work out. And the proof's there now. It has. And, he's had an unbelievable career. Is still having an unbelievable career.
What's your relationship like? I'm assuming you're watching all the Nottingham Forest games, maybe live, maybe delayed, but are you messaging him after every goal? And are you, when you're seeing him score a goal, are you up off the couch, giving it the,
I mean, I watch all the games, and it's amazing. That's part of my job now, is watching Premier League. I can call that work, which is pretty cool. And but I remember, I keep in touch with them pretty regularly, and they were playing Liverpool a few weeks back, and that's my team. And I actually said to him, "Good luck for the game." like, I hope you score.
And he did.
And he did. And,
We watched that in the office.
I know,
It was crazy.
It was amazing, and it was probably maybe the only time I was, maybe not supporting Liverpool as much as I should be. But yeah, I mean, what he's doing is amazing. And he brings that form back. He's the most proud Kiwi, wants to come and represent New Zealand to the best of his ability, wants to break records, appearances, goals, and he's well on the way to doing that. And he turns up. And he leads when he comes back. And every time he comes back, he's, gets inundated with media and the fans. And he's just so good. He's so humble and he just gives people time.
Well, we saw it firsthand. I mean, he's a ambassador, right? And when you played Vanuatu in Hamilton, when you took him off, he didn't do his warm down. I don't know if he got told off by the team, but he was straight into signing autographs. He was basically not off his feet from the minute he came off the pitch to engaging with the fans. He really is a pretty special role model.
He is. I'm not sure he was happy coming off either. You sort of know we've got to try and protect him a bit. But he never likes coming off. He wants to be on the pitch, wants to score goals. So every time I do bring him off slightly early, he always gives me that little look.
Especially at home.
I know, but hopefully he's already scored a few goals and it's, come on, off you come, and let go and see the fans and that. So he's great like that.
I've heard that his Nottingham Forest team described as Barclays, because it's like a throwback to the Premier League when it was, and like anti-woke football, where it's not all keep the ball, it's like get it wide, get crosses in, like attack at pace, which really lends itself to Woodsy's game. But I wondered, like, as All Whites coach, when Woodsy comes in, like, he's clearly the best at finishing and positioning. Like, how can you coach someone who's the best in the world at what he does?
I mean, we're pretty lucky with the squad we have, and I mean, we don't have to coach Woodsy. We have to provide service for him. So a lot of the time is spent actually trying to get or replicate the service he gets in his club career, which isn't easy, but we've got some really good players that are aware we've got this unbelievable Premier League striker in the team, and we've got to try and feed him. So, as you'll have sort of seen over the last year, we've been really working hard on trying to get more balls into the box, crosses, don't turn opportunities down to get the ball into Woodsy, because we know he just needs that half chance, one touch finish, and, he'll score goals for us. So it's our job to feed him.
And is he coaching the other strike? Like, is he... I would say his greatest strength is knowing where to be, like right place, right time, which is just the thing you can't really coach. But is he taking the other strikers in and trying to teach them his tricks?
What I've noticed with Woodsy, he's obviously a very, very good player, but I think over the last two years, his leadership skills has really developed. He's really taken on that captain role. And I think he's starting to understand his presence and the effect he can have on his teammates. So he's very vocal in our meetings now, very vocal at change rooms. We've had moments where, we'll talk at half time and then Woods will go, right, bring players in, and he'll say to the analyst, can I get the video? I want to see this clip. And he'll ask 2 or 3 players to come and look. And he's really developing his leadership, which is great to see. He's getting that little bit older, but he's took it all on, and we're trying to help him with that. Those leadership skills as well, because I can't really help him to score goals.
It's crazy as well, because New Zealand football has recently announced the match against Norway, and it's billed as Wood versus Haaland, the 2 best strikers.
Haaland,
yeah,
Haaland.
Okay, you pronounce how you want to pronounce, and I'll pronounce his name the right way.
Is it Haaland?
Well, I'd say Haaland.
I would say Haaland.
Right, hey,
have you heard someone say Haaland?
Yeah, Haaland.
Where have you heard that?
Look, I'm big in the Norwegian community. Regardless, it's billed as these 2 top Premier League strikers. Yeah. It's an amazing marketing gimmick that New Zealand has now got.
Amazing, yeah. They're 2 and 3, but they are the strikers, and I know Salah's there, but he may be a winger. So it's pretty, I suppose, factual that the 2 strikers, top scoring strikers, are playing against each other. But amazing. I mean, hopefully Woodsy can keep nodding a few more in and climb above Haaland before we play that game.
Or Haaland.
All right, we're going to link back up to Woodsy again at the end. But our listeners, I imagine, will be like, Darren Bazeley, All Whites coach, and I know he's been here for sort of 15 years or so, but it's like the life of the professional footballer to get there, like over 300 games of professional football. Like this stuff, it kind of is a bit of a throwback to where this podcast started from. Like I love that detail of what it was like, stories from the dressing room and sort of charting the path. So take us back to teenage Darren Bazeley. Like, what were you like? Was it always going to be football? What were you like as a player and a kid?
Yeah. If I'm honest, I mean, it's hard to remember those years when I was that young. But yeah, I just remember always being at school, sort of knowing that was what I was going to do, and the teachers I remember the teachers trying to talk me out of it. That won't happen. You got to do this, got to do that. And, I was okay at school, but it was never really my love. I wanted to be out playing and kicking around with the lads. And that was my love. So I was lucky playing locally, and got sort of recognised a little bit. And I was, like I say, I was a quick striker, winger, so I was scoring goals and getting some recognition back then at sort of 12, 13, And I was lucky then to sort of get into the local rep stuff and played, quite a few of those sort of rep tournaments back in England for Northamptonshire against different counties. And then, got sort of, I actually went to Notts County for about 6 months on and off, trained with them for a bit. And then I had a coach take me down to Watford when I was 14. Sort of like have a week's trial and stuff like that, and did pretty well. And they asked me to sign what it was, schoolboy forms at the time. So I was 14, still had 2 years left of school, because back then we used to leave at 16. So 2 years left of school, and I'd signed these schoolboy forms. And Northampton, Watford is about an hour up the motorway, if you sort of know, and it's an hour on the train. So what that meant for me was probably 3 times a week, I'd finish school, straight to the train station, get on a train at 14, 15, down to Watford, get picked up at the train station, taken to training, train, back to the train, all the way back home by 10, 11, doing my homework when I did it on the train. And so I did that for about 2 years and loved it, and did pretty well. Lucky enough then to get given a YTS, which left school 16, went straight into Watford as a YTS, or as an apprentice at the time.
Does that mean that you get money?
Sort of. So my first contract was £28.50 a week. And it came with the bus pass, and actually it came with digs. So I didn't have a lot of outgoings, but yeah, £28.50 a week. Which
is digs when you go in and live with a family?
Yeah, so I was living with a family, and just then we were just training every day, which was great. There's maybe 16, 17-year-olds together all day, and it was tough. It was a tough life, back then. It doesn't happen now, but back then the stories around young players doing all the jobs is real.
Like what?
Like we were washing walls and sweeping the terraces and cleaning the baths and the kit and the boots and polishing shoes and cleaning cars. Anything anybody wanted doing, that was our job. And we couldn't say no.
Yeah.
We just had to do it and get on with it.
I think back to our episode with Woodsy, and I think he sort of shared the same thing when he was at West Brom and he was 16 as well, that he was doing these sorts of things, taking the kid out for training, helping the coach, balls, all those sorts of things. So is that the life of a teenage footballer?
It was. It's not anymore. I don't even think they clean boots anymore.
Don't they?
But yeah, we always had, everyone had their little jobs and used to fight over the best jobs, because the actual laundry was the best job, because you would buy all the dryers and it was nice and warm. And you could hide away, but outside cleaning the terraces and stuff was pretty tough. But as hard as it was, they were great times. I had this group of players around us that, we were in 9 till 5 every day, and training in amongst that and playing at the weekend. And we're at the football club, and we're training next to the first team, and sort of we knew them. You're always given 2 or 3 first team players to clean their boots, and which was quite cool, because you got that introduction. And you had to be careful. You walk into the first team change room without knocking and stuff, you get into a bit of trouble.
So you're 16, 17. When does your first opportunity to play for the first team come along?
Well, again, I was pretty lucky when I was young with the speed I had, or the pace I had. And I had a pretty good year in the youth team, the first year. And I was actually lucky enough I remember it was the last game of the season that we were playing, that the first team had. I think the youth team still had a couple of games, and I was preparing to go, I can't remember where, with the youth team the next day. So it's Friday night, and I get a phone call at my digs, and they answer. Anyway, it's the manager at the time, Colin Lee, asked to speak to me. So I go on the phone. Oh God, am I in trouble here? And he said, I want you to report tomorrow to the stadium. You're in the first team. I was like, well, That was like, it was amazing. You know, it was everything you sort of dream about. And so I trained with the first team quite often. I was one of those players that always, if they needed an extra, and I got dragged in because, you know, I was potentially at the top end of the youth team sort of level. So I sort of was in and around them at times, but I'd never been in a squad. So I got brought in, and that was back in the day when there was only 2 subs. So the start 11 and 2 subs. So I got named as a sub for this first team game, which was crazy. And I got all my mates that are there early in the morning doing all the prep, putting the kit out and stuff. and I'm turning up late in my suit, and they're like, ugh. And then I'm in the changing room and they're all sort of looking through the window. I sort of remember it was quite fun. And then I was involved on that day. It was amazing. And I remember, and then I think it was 70 minutes. I got the nod to you're going on, and I was like, well, so I went on. It was amazing period. But so I went on right wing, and I remember we had a throw in. Nigel Gibbs playing right back, and I remember he threw it down the line, and I sort of ran to the byline and crossed it. Like first touch, crossed it, and Willie Faulkner at the time was in attacking midfield for us, headed it in for us to go 2-0 up.
Yeah.
And that was my first touch in first team professional football. Like I'd set up a goal, which was like, whoa. So it was, it was a really proud sort of moment for probably everyone, you know, especially like the youth team people coming in and seeing that. But probably for me, the big thing I remember was the win bonus. So I was on £28.50. Don't forget the 50 a week, because that was important. And then I remember we won this game, and I got £150 win bonus, which was like, it was more than a month's money, and that actually paid for a holiday for me for that summer, which was pretty cool. And then I suppose that was the start of it.
Okay, so teenage, making your debut for Watford, are you starting to think I'm going to be an England international? Like, is that the path for someone who's doing that at that age?
I don't think so. I think right then it was just like living in the moment. I think when you're young, you do that anyway, and you just live in the moment. You don't really have those plans. I think I was literally going day to day, week to week, you know, and hoping I was in the team, hoping I was in the squad, and pretty much seeing, I suppose then you start going contract to contract. It was...
But you got
good times.
You got to call up for the under-21, sir, right?
I did,
Did you come on for Andy Cole?
I did, yeah. Good notes. That was another proud moment for me. I remember the story behind it was because we were playing in the Championship, so the league below the Premier League, and you can imagine England have so many options of players, so they were only really looking at Premier League players. I think I was 19, so this is a few years later, and I'd probably maybe played 40, 50 games by then and scored a few goals. But Blackburn at the time were top of the league, and they had Kenny Dalglish as the coach, and they had a great team, and they had a couple of younger players in the team there. And I'd heard that Laurie McMenemy, who was the England under-21 coach, was coming to watch them and they were playing at Watford. And I never really thought, this is an opportunity. It never really entered my head. But I had a really good game and I scored 2 goals against Kenny, which I was so disappointed because he's my hero. And at the end of the game, he walked off in disgust, and I never got a chance to meet him that day. Yeah, which, you know, he probably wouldn't have spoke to me anyway. But I actually scored a really nice goal, like a chest volley from outside the area to go 1-0 up, and then scored a bit of a rubbish goal to go 2-0 up. I think we won 2-1 in the end. And it was about 2 weeks later that this letter came through, because back then there was no emails, it was all letters, and you get a formal letter from the FA saying that I'd been placed, I'd been scouted, and I'd been placed on standby for some games in the off season. So I was like, oh, cool. That was, you know, unusual. I didn't really think too much of it. And then about a week later, it was Darren Anderton, who was always injured.
Sick
note. He'd pulled out, and so he was right wing, and so I think, you know, I had an opportunity, so they called me up, so it was cool, and we were playing Hungary away. So I went in this squad. It was, you know, we had a good squad: Andy Cole and Ray Parler and Ugo Ehayog and Ian Walker, and you know, it was a good squad, all Arsenal, Tottenham, you know, there's some good players in there. And I was in that sort of squad. And I did know where I sort of stood in amongst it. I was a bit younger actually than a lot of them. And so away to Hungary we went, which was quite cool. And I was sub on the day. And then I remember it was probably about 70th minute again. It's probably about the right time for a subber. And they go, "Oh, you're going on." Oh, cool. And I didn't know. They didn't really tell me much. You're going on left wing. Okay. Even though I was right winger / striker, I'm going on left wing. I'll go where you want, no problem. But then they put up the thing and it's Andy Cole coming off. So I just sort of knew Andy a little bit from growing up around London and stuff. But yeah, he came off. He ended up having a way better career than me. So it's quite a nice thing to say, yeah, I went on for him. He won't remember it.
Niche areas. When you were racing Andy Cole, who's faster? Like that age? Like, are you you're up there with him?
Yeah, I'd have been up there with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he was representing Arsenal in those races at the time.
No.
He was. I mean, he was quick, but he was a goal scorer. You know, and I was less good player, but quick.
When you're in that, are you thinking there's a chance for other appearances, or in your words, are you just week by week, game by game?
No, and then as you start to get older, you start thinking, and so I played maybe 20 minutes against Hungary. I don't really remember doing anything within the game of note. But then you think, oh, like I'm in, do I stay in? Will I keep in? And that was the only time I ever played. So I don't think I impressed enough on the day. And if I'm honest, I knew that I'd been called up because of injuries. And then I think it was about 3 weeks later, they had the Toulon tournament and all the players suddenly became fit again, all the top players. And so the squad was pretty stacked at the time. And I never actually got called up again.
But you've got a successful club career by this stage. I think you said you got 45, 50 games.
Yeah, at that stage, it was going pretty well. But weirdly, the following pre-season, I think by this stage, I sort of signed a longer contract. So I knew I was sort of safe for a while as a footballer, what I'm going to do. And then I remember went through pre-season, and then we had the first game of the season the next year. And it's actually Luton away. So Watford-Luton was quite fierce. It was quite a big rivalry. And we're playing away. First game of the season. And it was about 20 minutes into the game. And I remember going in for a tackle and twisting at the time. And I felt my knee hurt quite bad. And I'm laying on the ground and I can hear my coach, who was Kenny Jackett at the time, shouting at me, "Baze, get up, get up." Like in his head, it's first game of the season, Luton away, 0-0. It was his first game as coach as well. So, he was like, "Get up, get up." So I did, because I do what I'm told. And I remember getting up and trying to run. And as I'm running, I could feel the bottom of my leg just like flicking out. And eventually I just sat down and couldn't, so I went off. And anyway, I went to had scans and stuff the next couple of days. And the surgeon said like I'd ripped my medial ligament off the bone. And he said, if I in that sort of 2-minute spell, if I'd have like side footed the ball or gone for a tackle, he said your ankle would have hit you on the ear because there's just nothing holding it there. So that was after the England stuff. And then I have this injury, which was a 6-month injury. And that sort of put me back a little bit and took me a little while to get over. But then, yeah, it comes around.
But yeah, you did. You came back. Back-to-back promotions with Watford. That, like, outside of like winning a league title, winning a Premier League, like getting promoted, that seems like such a ride to be on. All different steps of the celebration. Like, what was that like as a young player?
Yeah, it was amazing. It started poorly because I remember we got relegated on the last game of the season. So in the Championship, they always put all the games on a Sunday and they all kick off at the same time because there's all this toing and froing. And we had a chance to escape. We just didn't need to get beat at home to Leicester. And I remember we lost and got relegated. I forget what year. It would have been 93, maybe 4. We got relegated last game of the season, which was the worst feeling. So then we're in the League One, and we stayed there for 1 year and sort of like flicked about a bit and didn't really push for promotion. But then the following year, it sort of coincided with Graham Taylor coming back into the club. He came back in and sort of generated, we just became better. And that year we ended up winning League One. I remember we beat Fulham on the last game of the season to win the league, got promoted. I think that would have been 97, 98. So it's actually a bit later that we won that year. And then the following year we ended up winning the championship. Oh, sorry, we didn't win the championship. We won through the playoffs to get promoted to the Premier League. So yeah, back to back for that was an amazing period.
Name you mentioned there, Graham Taylor, is a fascinating one for me because I grew up that documentary that come out, the
The
Do I Not
Impossible
Like
Job.
That,
Yeah,
and like the
yeah.
turnip on the front page
Do
of
I
the
not like
papers
that?
and stuff.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
I not
yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
But he
Do the
was
accent again.
But he was I think I've seen you describe him as the best man manager that you've ever worked under. And I was keen to go into a bit of detail about what exactly it was about him that made him so good.
He was. He was the best man manager I've ever met. He just had this way with players. He just, like they don't teach us now, but on all our courses, it's all about getting to know your players and, that player shared leadership environment. And he was way ahead of his time because not all coaches were like that. Most coaches would just tell you what to do and shout at you. But he had this real great way of getting to know you and just getting more out of everybody. He knew everybody's kids' names, wives' names. He knew your dog's name. Like he just had this real way about him, and he was a very good coach, and he was tough as well. Like you knew if you got on the wrong side, you'd get one of those earfuls. But one of those Alex Ferguson ones. He had that in him as well. But most of the time, I'd say everyone, almost everybody that played for him loved him. He was a great man and a real good motivator, but a good coach as well, obviously. And that England stuff that happened was pretty poor, But that's, I suppose, a results game, and people saw an opportunity to have a go at him, like they have done many England managers, and destroyed him. Yeah, and I did hear one player did have an argument with him once, and actually brought up the turnip thing to his face. That didn't go well.
Yeah,
yeah. That player left the next day and never saw him again.
Was that return to Watford one of the first gigs that he had after England?
No, I think he'd gone to Wolves, and then. Did he go to Aston Villa or Wolves? I can't remember now, but he'd been to Wolves and then he had a bit of time out and then come to, I'm actually not sure of the where he went from where to England. But I remember him coming back because obviously he had history with Watford back in the 80s where he took them from the 4th division to the Premier League, and that was, everybody knew those stories. So him coming back, and with him Elton John came back as well. And it was really cool times. The fans got excited because Graham Taylor is a legend there, and and it was a weird, because we never had, Watford's not a big club with a lot of money, and we didn't have big money signings. We had a team, that year we got promoted, we had a real team of a lot of homegrown players that had played together for a long time, but also just good hard-working players. No flashy people, no flashy players, no egos, just real good, hard-working, honest players that, and when you put us all together, it was, we were a pretty strong team, and that sort of proved through the playoffs, and then that culminated in the playoff final at Wembley against Bolton, who had all the stars and all the money, and we ended up beating them that day.
I've heard you share a story about Graham Taylor and the birth of your second daughter, Abby, in the lead up to those playoffs.
But I've got a few stories about Graham, all of them good. Back in '96 when my first daughter was born, who we called Taylor, but she's Tayla, and that actually came from a name of there was a player, Trevor Putney, who had a daughter that we'd played with previously, and his daughter was Taylor, and it sort of stuck with us. It was quite a cool name, so we liked that name. But of course, then I go in the next day to training, and everyone's like, "Oh, you had a baby? Yeah, I had a baby girl." And what do you call it? And then I sort of start Taylor, and you could see him. He was like, "Thank you, thank you."
My man.
You named your daughter after me, and I was like, "Oh, where do I go with that?" So I copped a bit of stick on that. That was Taylor, and then my second daughter. So now we fast forward almost 3 years to '99, and so we're the last game of the season. We'd gone through the season around the edge of the playoffs, and you have to be top 6. We're sort of 7th, 8th, and then we get to the last game. It's always the last game of the season. Huh? Get to the last game of the season, and we're in 6th. So we just don't. Again, we don't need to lose. So I think if we won, we confirmed we're in the playoffs, and if we drew, it was going to be tight. So weirdly, when we're at home, we were never in hotels. It's different now; they're always in hotels pre-game. But back then, we were never in a hotel. And I think because it was such a big game, and they maybe worried about what we might do night before a game. I don't know, even though we weren't like that. They decided to put us in a local hotel, which was unusual. It was the first time I think we'd done that for years. So now it's because the games are on Sunday and it's Saturday night. So I'm in this hotel room in Watford, and with my roommate, and I remember watching Match of the Day. So it would have been 11 o'clock at night, maybe I'm watching Match of the Day Saturday night. And I get a phone, again, not my mobile phone, because I didn't have one then.
Pager.
So I think I did have a mobile phone then, was not that old. But the phone goes, and it's my wife, Sandy, and she goes, "Oh, my waters have broken." I was like, "What? Timing?" So I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'll be there straight away." And we weren't far away. We lived in Watford. So in my head, I'm thinking, "Oh man, I can't miss this game. I can't miss this game and give up my shirt, because playoffs and potential Wembley, and I'm not giving up my shirt, because you never know what happens." So I thought I'll write Graham Taylor a letter, a note, not a letter. It sounded formal.
Dear Graham.
Dated. No, I just wrote him a note and said, "Sandy's gone into labour. I've took her to the hospital. I'll be back ASAP." And I put it under his door and then left. So I went, picked her up, got to the hospital, and actually the second birth was quite quick, luckily. And weirdly, the hospital in Watford is next to the stadium. So you've got the stadium there, and the hospital was literally next door, which was a bit weird as well. So I'm in the hospital probably from 12:30. I think Abby was born around 3:30ish. So I probably stayed at the hospital till I reckon about 5:30, and then was like, "Can I go?" Sandy knew. She was fine. She grew up with football, so she knew what it meant, and she was fine. Baby was fine. Abby was fine. It was great. So I went back to the hotel. Back to the hotel. So I'm probably around 5:30, 6 o'clock now in the morning, and I wrote another letter and put it under Graham's door again and said, "Baby born, had a girl. I was back in bed by about 3 a.m. Just thought, I can't give him an excuse to not play me." So I saw him, then we get up for breakfast, and he'd obviously knew, getting congratulated, and he just sort of looked at me and went, "How you feeling? You good to play?" "Yep." I was good to play. And then, we played and we won that game, and we made the playoffs, which was an amazing time. And that's where Graham really came into his, the coaching excellence of the man, because we went into a playoff home and away. So when I was growing up, when you're young, or in England when you're young, I never really dreamed of being a footballer as such. Like, the one thing most young English people would say was Wembley. I want to play at Wembley. It was like, because of the FA Cup finals and the England games, it was just all about Wembley, which is a little bit different now. But back then, we didn't have games on the TV. It was like maybe 2 games a year televised. And they were the Wembley games. And I remember the FA Cup finals, you'd watch it from 10 a.m. till 6 and the whole day. So everything was always about Wembley. So I'm in this playoff, and you're thinking, God, the playoff finals at Wembley. We want to play at Wembley. So, but we've got this home and away against Birmingham, who are a pretty good team. I think they'd finished 3rd in the time. They were a good team. First leg at home, we win 1-0, which was tight. And then we go away, concede early, so it's 1-1. Game goes on. They actually had a man sent off, which helped us. Extra time. Anyway, the game finishes 1-1. And it goes to penalties. So now we're in a penalty shootout, knowing that the winner of the penalty shootout is going to go to Wembley, play at Wembley with a chance to get promoted to the Premier League. And they call the playoff final the richest game in world football, because of the rewards you can get for getting promoted. But what we'd done in the build up to this game, in probably the week building up to this Birmingham game, is at the end of every session, Graham Taylor he'd made us all come and stand on the halfway line, and you had to walk from the halfway line and take a penalty. And every single day you did it, and you're only ever allowed to take 1 penalty, and everyone was allowed to shout at you as you were doing it. Yeah. So you just got used to walking from there with getting abused by all your teammates who were supposed to be your mates, walking up, and whether you scored, missed, whatever, you weren't allowed to have another one. After training now, you might take one chance, walk away. Well, you had to walk back to the halfway line and either cop some stick or not. So, but it was great because we just got used to sort of. By the time we got to this stage, and I was taking number 4, I always wanted number 4. I didn't want to be early in the penalty shootout. I didn't want to be number 5 because that's too much pressure. So number 4 felt quite good. You always had a chance to score the winning penalty. Sometimes it happened a couple of times. So I liked number 4. But by the time I got to this moment, I knew how I was going to walk from the halfway line. It's a weird thing taking a penalty in a shootout because you probably took a few like in shootouts, but the actual penalty takings, the moment, but actually getting from the halfway line to the penalty spot is, we had 40,000 at Birmingham in front of that end, which was packed. And so by this time I knew how I'm going to walk from there to there. I sort of had a little walk into a little jog, into a little walk. I knew my pattern. And then how I was going to pick the ball up, put the ball down, how I was going to face that. And then I knew my sort of backward step, my weight, how I was going to run up and where I was going to take it. I just knew it in my head. So when I think back, I get more nervous now when I watch it back or I think about it, that moment. But at the time, I felt no nerves. I just knew. And that was down to the preparation that we'd had and the mentality, that Graham had put into us around our mindset of those moments. And I was lucky enough to score on the day. It was by the time I took
top corner?
It was. And you can watch it on YouTube. You can see it. But I always remember the commentator on the day was Alan Brazil. And I remember him saying, pace, power, top corner, keeper, no chance. I've watched it a few times. And I knew where I was going, and I went that way, and keeper went the right way, but it was high.
What's he? Oh, this? No, it's my penalty from the playoff. Yeah, just someone sent it to me. But have a look if you want to get some tips.
No, we don't talk about it. I don't show it. But that was.
So you get your chance to go to Wembley.
Yeah, because we ended up winning the penalty. It actually went to. I think we ended up winning 8-7. It went sudden death and went on and on and on and on. We ended up winning 8-7. And we're suddenly on a Wembley trip, and it was the last ever game at Wembley, at the old Wembley, before then sort of moved to the new one, and it was amazing day. It was all a bit of a blur again, just an amazing culmination of like growing up, thinking, and I remember thinking, when we won, oh my God, I get to climb the steps. Do you remember watching it? And you could climb the steps. And I remember in my head thinking, I need to get a scarf. I need to get a hat. And I did. As I'm walking up the steps, get a scarf from one of the fans. And then it was the old Wembley was great because you didn't have to go in. You just sort of walked up and then along the royal box. So it was amazing. I've got all the photos and it's pretty cool.
What's your level of celebrity like in Watford at this point when you take a team to the Premier League? Like if you're walking down the street, is everyone coming up and saying, hey, Baze?
It wasn't it definitely wasn't like it is now. We were still, people probably would know who we were, but it wasn't as mad, as crazy as it is now for people like Woodsy and for those guys. And it was a different era. But,
so what's it like celebrating after that Wembley, after you've done the walk with the trophy? Like what does that night out look like afterwards?
Does it start with the baths in Wembley? Did you get in the the bath?
Yeah. So at Wembley, about the size of this room is a big bath.
Yeah.
Which is weird. That's probably why they knocked it down and built a new one. So, I remember by the time we'd climbed up and, we all had our photo lifting the trophy and then came back down, it was weird because almost, I won't say half because Watford we had more than half the stadium. I'd say it was 60-40 Watford. So what's that? 40% of the stadium. I'll try to do the maths.
I'm with you, man.
That had cleared, gone. So you just had this sort of 3/4 of the stadium yellow. Still there, nobody had left. So we were on the pitch for so long, just walking around, and as you can imagine, doing all of that. But again, because Sandy just had Abby, our baby, our second, and she'd had a few complications, and really unluckily, the day before the Wembley game, she'd had to go into hospital and had to stay in the hospital, Sandy. So we had people looking after the kids, and Sandy was actually in hospital and missed the game. So that night, because then you can imagine that there's a big after party. So we went from Wembley back to Watford, and there was a sort of country house dinner and a big sort of drink party. And so I was only there. I had sort of there for probably had dinner and speech, and then I shut off. So I actually never had the big night out and went straight to the hospital.
Does Elton John get out the piano and play a song or anything like that to celebrate?
No, he wasn't there on that day.
How's he missed that?
No, he watched it.
Concert probably.
Yeah, probably. I think he was probably in America or somewhere. But he was on video phones, and he was on talking to everybody and stuff. Yeah, he was a big supporter. Yeah, I met him a few times. He was a big football Watford supporter. That the story was that wherever he was in the world, that he would tune into hospital. He would get someone to ring hospital radio and put a phone next to so he could listen to the commentary of the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's Watford's return to the big stage, I think.
Yeah.
First time in the top division for a year, for years. Culmination in a long time for you, but you make a decision not to play in the Premier League?
I know. Yeah. Sometimes I look back, but no regrets. I mean, what happened was I'd been at Watford for 10 years. So I'm now 27, 28. And my contract was running out to the end of that year. And I actually would have signed anything throughout that year. And the club had been a bit funny and sort of said, let's wait till the end of the season. I'm not sure they thought we were going to get promoted. So I don't know what was going to happen. In the meantime, my agent had been talking, as they do, to lots of clubs. So by the time it came to where we were then, and we'd gone through playoffs, and I'd played almost every game and got promoted at Wembley, and I was in a really good position. So I had options. Watford then wanted to re-sign me, which was nice, and they were talking around a 4-year contract. But I sort of knew if I signed this, I'm never leaving. Like, that would have took me to 32, and I'll probably never have that experience of moving club. But then we've just got promoted, and I was like, and a few opportunities came up, but like a big opportunity at Wolverhampton Wanderers came up, and I knew the coach. It was Colin Lee, who'd given me my debut years and years ago. So because it was him, I'd said, because I was going to re-sign at Watford, in the whole euphoria of getting promoted and everything. We'd actually bought a new house and everything. So, but I thought, because it was Colin, I'll go and speak to him. He was like, just come talk to us, come see the club. And so me and my agent went up there and met them, and he showed us around. And I was sort of blown away a bit by the club. And when the agent started talking around the figures, I was probably blown away as well. It's just a bigger club at the time, and it probably is. Well, it still is now. Wolves is a massive club with massive history. So whilst I knew I was giving up that immediate Premier League, at the time, Watford was they were talking around it. Everyone sort of knew it was going to be 1 year and get relegated, because they weren't going to spend money. And all the contracts they were giving out had a clause around, you get relegated, it drops back to championship level. And so there was some complications, but I was still drawn, all that work to get there, and I'm going to walk away.
I'm always, just to cut in, I'm always interested in the dynamic there with a team that gets promoted to the Premier League. There's going to be more money coming in. They're going to make some big new signings. For like a fringe player or someone who's struggling to get game time, they know that a promotion probably means they're going to get less, So like, in a way, is there kind of mixed emotions when a team goes up into the Premier League?
I think there is. I probably wasn't thinking that at the time, because I'd played every game. I was like, but it was a difficult decision, and a lot of people didn't understand it. It was sort of one of those things I went backwards and forwards with, spoke to a lot of people, and in the end decided to leave. And, it was a great move. And you never look back. Everything happens for a reason. That's my philosophy. And, that sort of set in place quite a few things is potentially why I'm still sat here now, because of those decisions you make back in the day. But it was, and went to Wolves. Wolves was a great club. It was a great time. I loved being there. And but going back to Graham Taylor, he was a bit peeved at the time that I'd sort of left, and I know he'd told people that, no, don't worry, Bazel sign. So I think he was surprised. They hadn't really gone out their way to sort of make it happen until they realised that, I might leave, and then negotiations started getting a little bit better. But even though I'd left Watford, Graham Taylor kept in touch every year. Even when I came to New Zealand, every year got a Christmas card from Graham Taylor and Rita, his wife. And he wrote me a lovely letter understanding my decision. I mean, he was a football man. Yeah. He knew.
He brought the team to New Zealand, didn't he? The England team to New Zealand for the centenary.
Yeah, a long time back.
91, I think it was.
I think Watford came out as well.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So
you go to Wolves. 18 months and you don't miss a game, and then you never play again.
I know. It was so good for a while. It was, like I say, I walked into Wolves, big stadium. It was a big club. Like, I joined the same day as Andy Sinton. So the manager had brought me and Andy Sinton in to play right and left wing. I was going to play right wing. Sinton was going to play left wing, who'd come from Tottenham. He was obviously a very good player. I think he was still in the sort of round the England time, edges at the time. And the reason he'd brought us both in, because we had Steve Bull, legend striker, goal scoring machine as our striker. So at the time we had Steve Ball and Robbie Keane.
For young ones, it's kind of like Chris Wood is now.
Yeah, like
for Wolves,
legend.
like Ledge.
Yeah, scored 200-300 goals, professional goals, amazing career record. So then we had Bully and Robbie Keane, young Robbie Keane. He was only about 17. So that was our 2 strikers. So our job, we'd been told, crosses, just get crosses in for Bully. Keane will just play off Bully and we'll win the league and we'll get promoted. Brilliant. So that's the plan. I walked in there and I walked into a training room with like Kevin Muscat and Neil Emblen, you know, some great people at the time in that team. It was a good team. Keith Curl, Steve Sedgley, you know, like players, Simon Osborne, sort of people that you'd know. But we went pre-season, so I'd been at the club and it was all, oh, this is going to be great. Been at the club about a month. We go to Sweden pre-season. Halfway through pre-season tour, Bully just retires. Just says, "I'm done. I'm done," and retired. Like it was like, oh, that's not the plan. You know, there's no point me crossing the ball for Keane. He's like, you know, he wants the ball to his feet. He doesn't want crosses. So it was a bit weird. You know, it suddenly brought in 2 people that, you know, me and Andy Sinton, like both love crossing the ball, and you know, suddenly you lose the person that was for. So it put us back a bit. And we had other players, obviously, but you can't replace Steve Ball. We ended up buying Adi Akinbaye, who came in and did score goals for us, which was great.
So you're flying for Wolves, and then is it injury that curtails everything? Loss of form?
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, I played, like I say, the first season I went there, I was lucky enough that season I played every single minute of every game. So I ended up 51 games because of some cup games. Never missed a minute, which I got, like, there was quite a recognition thing that they did at the time because it hadn't been done very often. And there's a funny story actually with Embers. He hates this story. He knows I always tell it because I was good mates with Embers even then. And he'd also played every minute of every game. And there's about 10 games from the end of the season, Portsmouth away, and the coach dropped him and he was sub. But then the guy that replaced him got injured after 20 minutes. And so he came on, played the rest of the season. So he played every minute except for that little 20 minutes. And then come the end of the season, there's all this media and press around, Bazeley played every minute. And he's like, ugh. So I always use that. I was fuming. Yeah. Even if he listens to this, he'll be fuming me telling the story.
He said he played every position there is on the pitch.
Yeah.
Played in goal against Millwall away.
Yeah, he did. I remember that. Yeah.
So we're introducing Embers here, Neil Emblen. So it's quite remarkable. Like, you and Embers both been All Whites coach now, and you've met in, you know, this Wolves dressing room, and your kind of career kind of like follows each other for the next few years. Like, it's just quite remarkable that the influence that you two have had on New Zealand football from, you know, being in UK. Yeah,
I mean, it is a bit weird. Like, so we played together at Wolves, then we played together at Walsall, and then we came to New Zealand to play for the Knights together, and then we coached together when we were coaching yourself.
Dream team.
We take United. And I was
questionable decisions.
I was his assistant for a while, and then the under-20s, he became my assistant, and then he got the All Whites job, and I was his assistant. That was actually before the 20s because he had those 2 games, and I was his. Were you involved?
Yeah.
Japan.
No, I didn't go to that one.
And so I was his assistant, then he was my assistant, and then we both went to Colorado. And he's obviously stayed in America. So,
do you have different strength as a coach? Do you have different strengths and weaknesses? Like, are you very similar in the way you approach things? Yeah, to Embers.
I think we're very similar but different. Probably different. You know, he is the way he is. He's a great coach, and I don't know. We're probably very similar as well. Yeah, it's a difficult question. Yeah. I'm trying to think of him. He's big, tall, bald.
Yeah. When we spoke, and this is a long time ago, when we spoke, you were bad cop to his good cop, but I wonder whether that's accurate.
Well, Embers is a nice guy. So, yeah.
No, Stephen doesn't think so.
Yeah, well, there we go.
Me and Embers got a great relationship.
Yeah,
you do now.
It was the right call.
Mind you, you fell out with Bunsey as well. Don't forget that.
Yeah, it's sort of always worked pretty well. You know, and we were able to, you know, sometimes I'd be good and he'd be bad now and again. Only a couple of times he'd be bad. You
mentioned Walsall there. So your career eventually finds its way there. But this period of 18 months where you don't play, is that like a possible career ender, or was it just extenuating circumstances?
No, it almost was, yeah. So I play that season, play every game, and then the following season it carries on, and I played every game every minute, every game until the 23rd of December. So I'm probably about halfway through the season. Sheffield Wednesday away, and I remember it was like 82nd minute, and I went to cross a ball down by the byline, and as I crossed it, I felt my knee just twist, and as I laid on the ground, my knee was locked. Like I couldn't bend it or straighten it. It was literally locked. I was like, whoa. So you sort of like, well, done, get me off. Like, and that was my last time I was on the pitch for Wolves. Yeah, and then so I'd done 3 or 4 things inside my knee, not the ACL, but different ligaments and stuff in there. So I had an operation, and they sort of said it was a 3-month operation. Fought to get fit. It never was right. Had to go back in, have it done again. Never recovered properly. So by this time, the coach had got sacked, Colin, and a new coach had come in, Dave Jones. And at this stage, he wanted his own players anyway. But I'd had it done twice. I tried to recover. So now we're almost 9 months past injury. And I remember going in, right, we need a different surgeon. So I went to a different hospital, different surgeon. And I remember at the time them sort of saying this is last chance almost to get it right. Great surgeon, did something differently, and it ended up that I had this bone had grown in the notch, and it was stopping this and that. And anyway, he fixed me, and I recovered well from that. But at the time, so when I got fit from that 3rd operation, so now we're like a year, 12, 14 months, the club had moved on. Dave Jones come in, he's brought new players in. I didn't really fit in his thing. So at the time, he was wanting me to retire. Like, he actually spoke to me and said, "Oh, maybe it's time you should retire," and because they get money, they get insurance money. So I think I was a bit pissed off at the time. Like, I think he was trying to actually get the insurance money and just make me go away. But I knew the 3rd time, you just know as a player, I knew this is fine. Knee felt great. I was running. I was, pace had come back. I was doing really well playing in the reserves. Still had a year left on my contract. We were into my 3rd year, had another year. So I was like, nah, I'm not going anywhere. The money's fine, so they can't make you do anything. So I just carried on training, playing for the reserves and training at the time. So that whole 18 months, I never played for the first team. Come the end of the season, I had a few opportunities at different clubs, and then Walsall came in, who weirdly Colin Lee had gone and took over there. So there was another good connection for myself. And Walsall Wolves is close. It's like the next close, not close as in how big they are, because it's a smaller club, but it's really close geographically, and it meant I could stay in the house, and it's just an extra 10, 15-minute drive to get to the game, to training. And
on your first day of training, serendipitous meeting.
Yeah, when you look back, amazing. I walked in, so it's a weird thing, even now at the time I was probably 30, and so I'm a bit more grown up then, but you still, as a footballer, when you walk into a new change room, it's a bit weird because you're walking into a new place. And we used to get changed at the stadium at Walsall. So I remember first day walking in with my bag and trying to be a bit confident, a bit bravado, and morning lads. So I know everybody. I knew a couple of people, so I walked in and sort of thought I'll just walk in, turn left, and just walk to the nearest corner, so I don't have to walk across the change room and get abused, because that's what it was like back in the day in change rooms. So I'd come in and I'd turn left and walk towards this corner, and I see Steve Corica, who I knew from Wolves, who obviously here is at Auckland now. So I played with Stevie at Wolves as well. So I knew him, and he was at the club. So I walked towards him to sit in near him because it's safe. And as I'm walking towards there, I see this big guy just stand up and looked at me and went, "Oh, am I in your space? Sorry, mate, am I in your space?" And I was like, no, that's my first day as well. And that was Danny Hay.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I'd met Danny. He'd come from Leeds. We actually signed for Walsall on the same day, and this was both our first day at the club. So I introduces and I sat down. So I end up with, in the change room with Danny, me, Steve Corica. A couple of weeks later, David Drilic joins, who's now the coach at Perth, another Aussie. So there's Danny, me, Driller, and Steve Corica, Bimby. I call him Bimby, I have to call him Corica now, Steve Corica. So there's 4 of us sitting there in this little corner of this change room in West Midlands.
See, another weird one, right? Like there's a little corner.
Yeah.
You got Auckland FC coach, and you got two All Whites coaches coming from this little corner of a changing room.
Yeah, and that became our card school. You know, like as a footballer, you play cards, hearts, and it was me and Danny against Driller and Corica playing hearts for the next 2 seasons almost. And
So your teammates with Danny Hay. He comes home because I think around that time, that's when the New Zealand Knights start up. And as you've mentioned, you and Neil Emblen eventually end up here in New Zealand. But is that through that connection?
Yeah, 100%. So, you know, I was good mates with Danny, and we were, you know, sometimes we'd drive in together. We didn't live too far away from each other. And then he left to come back because I think he was the first signing of the new club, the Knights. And we kept in touch. And then he started sort of saying, why don't you come? Why don't you come? We're starting this new club. And he was involved at the time in some of the conversations early on. So he kept ringing, and we're like, we've been Europe, but like never been that far. Like that's a long way away when you live in England, and you know, that's a long,
Did you know
long
much
way.
about New Zealand other than All Blacks or even that?
I knew. Obviously, everyone knows the All Blacks, but no, I'd never thought of going there for a holiday even. You know, our plan as a family, we were always going to leave England, but we'd always planned to, you know, probably Portugal, Spain, you know, and end up living near the water and a bit sunnier, a bit nicer. So Danny was saying, you know, and he painted a great picture anyway. And I knew all these conversations I had along the years with Mozzie and Jono and Bimby and that around this part of the world was great. So anyway, we decided, cool, well, let's go on holiday. Let's go and have a look. Like, instead of just making a decision, let's go and have a look. So it was off season. So myself, Sandy, and 2 girls, when they were like 4, 3 and 5-ish, that sort of age, came for a 2-week holiday, you know, in the off season, and just fell in love with it. Like when we came, went around, and this would have been sort of a New Zealand winter. It would have been June. We just loved it. Like just the scenery and the sea, and just like it was quiet, and it was just nice compared to where we were. So we had a great 2 weeks, and in that period, I spoke to the club, spoke to the people running the club, and sort of had some loose agreements of this could work. Then they started saying that the season has been put back. The A-League got put back to the following year. So I'm like, well, I can't really, and they couldn't offer a contract until sort of January, and this is now June. So I'm like, well, I can't really have this 6 months of just doing what. So I went back and actually negotiated, signed another year contract at Walsall, stayed there and played there again until this club was sort of ready. And then weirdly it sort of worked out that I'd sort of fell out a little bit with the club around Christmas and managed to get out. And January I was here in New Zealand, the following year.
So you come and we link up to the Knights. And while the scenery was beautiful in New Zealand, like the football was not, right? Like it's pretty well documented, like what a struggle that was. I think maybe the best way to compare it is to like the success with what Auckland is doing, and like why the Knights failed and why Auckland is succeeding. Like what happened at the Knights?
I mean, it was obviously very early. You know, it was the start of a new league. You know, and probably it just wasn't resourced. You know, it wasn't. It didn't have the backing, you know, of what Auckland has now. You know, they've done it so well now with what they've done. But back then, you know, and bearing in mind it was 15 longer. Well, how many years ago is this?
20 years ago.
20 years ago, God. You know, and the league was a little bit different as well. I don't think the Knights was, you know, some of the other clubs weren't also as well resourced. But it wasn't probably well set up, and we didn't recruit well, and it was just tough. It was tough times. You know, and we didn't have a great time in the league. I still remember enjoying it, but it was tough losing, you know, pretty regularly.
But you're an experienced pro as well.
Yeah.
Like you're coming and you've got this work ethic from Graham Taylor, and you're doing things right. But you know, you look aside and it just seems like a bit of a.
I was going to throw Tinks under the bus, but I won't.
No, we had some good young Kiwis, but we didn't have what Auckland have done really well now is they've got core Kiwis. And if I'm honest, when I signed or when I was talking to Danny around what the Knights was going to be, I was sold on it's going to be all Kiwis together, fighting every week against Aussies, real great culture, spirit, going to add 4 or 5 foreigners, me, Embers, Danny Milosevic, but the rest will be all Kiwis. And that never worked out. You know, we ended up bringing in a lot of Aussies and other players that maybe weren't potentially at that level. And we never were able to do what Auckland have done now with a core group of Kiwis with that culture and that working together, you know, sprinkle in what they have now and you've got a good mix. You know, and the Phoenix have had their best times as well when they've done the same thing, you know, which is where we are with the All Whites. You know, when you've got players that grew up together, played together for so long, you've got this cohesion and connection and this team spirit that just bonds them together. You become better. We never had that. You know, it was a messy time, and you know, we had John Adshead as a coach. He hadn't coached for a long time, and he was going through issues, personal health issues, and that didn't work. And yeah, it sort of rolled on until they ran out of money, and that was it.
But New Zealand's enough of a pull to keep you here because rather than tearing up the contract and chucking it all in, you decide to set up shop here.
Once we were here, we were never going anywhere else. Like, to give you some context, like we've been here 20 years. So 2005 we arrived. My wife's never been back to England.
Really?
Never been back. Yeah. And nor of my daughters. My eldest daughter went back for our honeymoon 2 years ago, but my youngest never been back to England.
Do you mind if I ask? Is that obviously a deliberate decision? Like, why?
Well, I think like it's just so better here. Like living here on a daily basis is just so nice. And if you then get the opportunity to go on holiday, there's probably a lot nicer places closer than heading across the world to go in England where it's a bit grey and you know, we've got a lot of family there, so that's hard. But we're used to it. I mean, we moved around when I was in England, so we've always just been our own sort of family unit with me, Sandy, and the girls. Now it's extending because we've got now boyfriends and husbands and grandkids now, or grandchild now.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of zoom in a little bit on that family, and you've sort of spoken to it already, but you do, the four of you move here, and it almost solidifies and cements, I won't say siege mentality, but you're really connected and really entrenched in the community. And now you are a grandparent. You've got proper roots in here, but how's that changed your perspective on life?
Do I look that old? Do I look like a granddad?
No, you look great. You look great, Baze.
I don't feel like a granddad.
But you are.
But I actually like the name granddad. You know, you get to choose. What do you want to be called? So I just want to be granddad. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, it works both ways because Jude, your grandson's got Baze as his middle name.
I know. Amazing. Oh, yeah. So, little Jude born on the 19th of December, which is the same birthday as Taylor. You know, so weird, huh? Like, who's the mum? If you didn't know, you know. Jude Drake. And then they tell me they're giving him the middle name Baze, which was amazing. You know, that was pretty cool. He's awesome. 2 months old now. So it's gone. You know, we've always felt like Kiwis. Probably 3, 4, 5 years since we arrived. Like I say, I did those 2 years at the Knights. That finished. There was some issues around the residency program then because we were on a work to residency. So we were lucky enough to get that through sort of just in time because it was a period where it's a little bit awkward of if you're not employed and you know you're obviously not bringing stuff to the country. So I was able to get a job pretty quickly and managed to get a permanent residency, and then we just became citizens as quickly as we could. And now we're all citizens, and now we've got a grandchild born here, which is amazing. But we feel like, I always say I'm a New Zealander.
At the stage of your career, you know, just before you win a few headers against me playing for Waitak, are you starting to think coaching? Are you starting to think what the next chapter is going to look like?
Yeah, I'd always been interested. You know, I was one of those players that always did a little bit. So when I was at Watford growing up, you know, I was one that used to go and help coach the youth teams. I was lucky there the academy was close to where I lived, so once a week in the evening I'd go and help out. And actually, I remember weirdly, after about a year of me just floating around and helping, they gave me a team, the under-13s. And weirdly, Ashley Young was in that team.
Oh wow!
Yeah, as a young Watford player, I've actually, you know, looking at all my books, you know, a few weeks ago, I found this diary of coaching from back then, and I'd kept these are the players they attended, and this was my session, and so I'd always tried to do a bit, and I enjoyed it. And I sort of in my head, I knew I don't want anything else. I don't want to be involved in, you know, I've done football all my life from a young kid all I wanted to do was play football, even though I played a bit of rugby and basketball and cricket. But all I wanted to do was football, and then had this whole career just playing football. Never wanted to do anything else. I didn't want to really do a different job. And so coaching is the next best thing to playing. It's not playing. You don't get the same experience, but you're still involved in the game, and you still get those moments with players, and you still get the games. And so I was lucky enough to, once I left the Knights, once that happened, and Ricky left, because Ricky came in and coached us for the last few games at the Knights, and actually we won a few games towards the end. We were looking good, but that went bankrupt, and that's when it moved to the Phoenix. Because the Phoenix didn't play the first 2 games of the A-League. So the Phoenix came up, but I sort of still had a year contract, and it was like, has that contract been ripped up or not? Because it was a license. But I spoke to Ricky, and if I'm honest, I didn't want to move to Wellington, and if I'm honest, he didn't want me to move to Wellington. So it was just done, and which is why I ended up at Waitakere. But I was lucky enough to know Keith Pritchett, who was at the Federation Northern, was United Soccer 1 at the time, Northern Football now. And he was like, "What are you going to do?" Don't know. I'm still going to play a little bit, but there's no money really in that sort of amateur game. So I probably needed a job, and I was lucky to get a Federation job at an area coach. So I became Waitakere area coach, and I sort of was doing that full time. And that probably why I didn't enjoy my football so much as well, because I suddenly gone from being a footballer where that's all you do all day, and you train, go home, rest, recover, prepare, to now I'm working all day. It wasn't really all day, but I'm working. And then going training, and then working, and then playing, and it was just like I didn't really enjoy that. So I sort of like did the 1 year playing. Then I like working. I want to stay coaching, but I'm not going to try and play. I'm too old.
You've got this really cool relationship with the players that you've brought through. I think like 16 years coaching in New Zealand, and the first one was assistant coach of the 17s in 2011. And a lot of those players... 2009.
I was about to jump in.
Don't worry.
Well, I'm going to bring Seamus in because both of you kind of have this role. I know Shay does too. Like, he was at Sarpreet Singh's wedding. Like, these impressionable sort of teenage boys have now all been on this path, and now they're fully fledged, mid-20s experienced pros, and you guys have both been on this sort of path together. And there was one, I don't know where timeline was exactly, but the players all wrote a letter asking for Seamus to come to the World Cup with them.
Yeah, I remember.
What was it? You fill us on that one, Shay. What was that one?
I was not as a player.
I was overage. I'd managed the under 17s in 2011, and Darren was the assistant coach then. And for some reason, he got bumped up to the top job in 2010.
For some reason.
No, let me finish. For some reason, he decided to keep me on after I'd forgotten the cones for the official training session at the World Cup in Mexico. So anyway. I then got a job full-time with New Zealand Football, and we'd gone through the qualification process, and then I wasn't able to take the time to go to the World Cup. But I'd built this really strong relationship with the players, as we all had, and they kind of felt a sense of he's part of the team, we want him to come along. So, in their young teenage minds, I think Nick Forrester might have been the ringleader, and they wrote a letter, and they all kind of signed it and sent it to Fred de Jong, who was the high performance manager at the time, and it was really nice. Don't get me wrong.
I think I signed it.
Did you?
I think so.
Did you?
I reckon.
Did you go?
No, I didn't go.
It was still. I look back. That was a poor decision. They should have let you finish that cycle.
Yeah, I mean, and it is.
But we did get Rob Pickstock.
Yeah, I know. Well, one door closes, another door closes. One door closes, another door opens for somebody else. But you have, I think back to the first time I worked together with Darren on a staff was 2011, and in that group, you've got a 15-year-old Cam Howison and a 15-year-old Tim Payne. Now they've both, I think, I don't want to misage either of them, but they're nearly 30 years old now. Yeah. So you've had this almost like a father figure role, I guess, to a whole bunch of players that have come through over 15 years.
I mean, I wouldn't say father figure, but I've worked with them. And we've been to a lot of football games and coaching sessions and just been around. Yeah, so build up real good connections with a lot of players. And there's players, you're right, under 17s, under 20s, all those sort of groups I worked with, we've had these connections built and trust and relationships built. I think that's what's helped me now, potentially helped me get the job as well, is this relationship I've got with pretty much all the players, including the All Whites. I was lucky enough to be involved with the All Whites 2014 with Neil, and then Anthony came and I became the assistant there. So 15, 16, 17 with the All Whites, and then with Danny again with the All Whites. So Woodsy, I remember, Woodsy actually reminds that he played against us years and years ago for probably that game you're talking about. He always says there was a game I played against you and Embers. And Embers was marking.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah.
But 2014, Woodsy was in those squads, and Costa and Boxy and Tommy and all those guys. So I've been really lucky to build relationships, and that's important as a coach. You've still got to be proficient and be able to coach and be able to organise and manage and everything. But the ability to know your players is massive. And I'd like to think that we've got these good relationships where I can talk pretty openly and honestly with all of them. Yeah.
But when you think back to that original squad in 2009, the under-17s, did you realise or think at that moment really consciously that these are international opportunities and they have the potential to just continue? Like, was it a deliberate choice on your part to really pursue that?
I was working. How it sort of came about was I was got this job at the Federation as an area coach, and Steve Kane was the under-17 coach, and they were actually training pretty regularly. But it was back in the day where the 17s had a training group. They were training 3-4 times a week. And they were training at North Harbour Stadium where I was, and Pritch knew Caney and had sort of said to him, like, Baze is keen if you ever need any help. So Caney was like, okay, ex-professional. I was quite young, I suppose then, probably 38. Just come out of playing. So I think Caney, I didn't really know Caney, but I think in his head he was like, okay, that'd be cool, bring in a sort of ex-pro around the players a little bit, help out, and players can talk to him. And so I was there training, not really coaching, just helping, being around. And then Caney went, oh, do you want to come to the World Cup? As actually an assistant coach. And again, we had Aaron McFarland as well as assistant coach. And I had a different role. It was more around sort of probably my experiences and helping some of the players. And so that was the start of it, Nigeria, 2009. And that was the first time a New Zealand team got out of the group stage into the knockouts with that Jack Hobson VA goal against Turkey in the last minute.
But that's what I mean. Like, one minute you're thinking, my playing career is over. I'm going to be a coach. Maybe the breadth of it is going to be the Waitakere region. Yeah. And the next thing you're on a plane to Abuja in Nigeria and you're sitting on the bench, and when history is made for New Zealand football, did that experience make you crave more, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I was actually blown away by it. Being there representing a country, national anthems, and you're playing against countries, I was like, wow, this is amazing that I'm actually even here and I'm helping. I'm in the change room. I sat on the bench, and when Jack scored that goal against Turkey, I wasn't on the bench. I was on the pitch, which I don't often get overwhelmed emotionally. I'm pretty calm, pretty steady. But that was an amazing moment. It was like we were going home, and then he scored this thunder goal from 30 yards, top corner, and I remember me and George Smith, we ran on, and suddenly I'm on the pitch. Like, it was crazy. And I thought, this is amazing. And then I just wanted to be involved, and then I said, next time it came round again, you had to apply. And I applied and became the assistant coach again, with the under-17s. We ended up going to Mexico in 2011 with Paney and those guys. It was a good team. Again, we got out the group stage again. And then the next time round, so I'd sort of been involved for 4 years there. And then I applied for the head coach role and was lucky enough to get given that and that's where then we had that next group of again, good players, Rufa and Ollie Sauer in that group, and Redentons and Den Hire, Adam Mitchell. It was a good group.
You mentioned a name there, Anthony Hudson. He's an interesting and quite a polarising figure, I'd say, in New Zealand football, but you worked really closely with him, as assistant, and then sort of went to America with him. What's your view on Hudson as a coach?
I think he was exactly what New Zealand needed at the time. They'd been through quite a few years with Ricky, and they'd been super successful. And Anthony he's like so professional, so organised, so meticulous in his preparation that it was different, and the players would say that as well. It was everything was so organised and so planned. You know, he's a really, really good coach. I mean, he's still young now, but at the time he was quite young. Had a few jobs. Is a career coach. You know, I really enjoyed working with him. I learnt a lot. You know, his detail is really good. You know, the way he sets everything out, the way he plans opposition analysis, everything is you know, really super professional. He's a really good coach.
You had a front row seat for Confederations Cup, Cristiano Ronaldo as well.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that like to see one of the world's greatest players live in the flesh?
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, the Confederations Cup, you know, I've been so lucky when I look back with the World Cups, FIFA World Cups. I've been lucky enough now to do 6 FIFA World Cups, 2 Olympics, the Confederations Cup, Peru Intercontinental Games, Costa Rica, you know, all the Oceania tournaments. You know, now I'm sat here with the All Whites. It's, you know, I'm so privileged and lucky to get that. But the Confederations Cup was amazing, you know, in Russia. And I remember the first game we played Russia. And the first game, and just before the national anthem, Putin's up there. And they give him the microphone. He's talking, but he's got this bulletproof glass.
I remember that.
And I remember turning around thinking, this is super weird. Huh? Like, didn't understand him, but it's like, knew it was a moment. I don't know what he was saying. But yeah, they beat us, Russia. They were a pretty good team. And that was where we had a real good ding-dong with Mexico.
Yeah, it was a brawl, wasn't it?
Yeah. We gave them a good scare. You know, we actually played really well that day. And that was where we ended up chasing. And we'd frustrated Mexico. I think we'd gone 1-0 up. And we ended up losing, but we were in the game for long periods and ended up with that big 20-man brawl that no one says who started it. I think Boxy started it. But yeah, Boxy started it. And then everyone came in and it was good. I
think Costa was first man in.
Yeah, Costa was there.
And Mikey McGlinchey maybe?
And then Tommy came in. Everyone was there. And what their cameras don't show, that was on the pitch. But on the sideline, it was as crazy. You know, there was... The 2 groups came together on the sideline, the coaching groups as well. It was pretty...
were you in amongst it, giving it the Jason Hayne, or were you sort of...
Can't tell you. There's no video.
Yeah, that's right.
But then... Confederations was pretty cool. And then Portugal, obviously, Ronaldo. And Duran nutmeg him or something. Did something, yeah. I don't know.
But then you got the heartbreak of the Intercontinental Playoff, which was the last one, as we kind of knew it, was of the home and away series.
Yeah.
There's kind of stories about some of the shithousery or gamesmanship that there was in Lima, but can you talk to some of that?
I mean, yeah, what an experience. You know, we, Peru, a very good team, ranked really highly. And if you remember the Wellington game, I thought we were the better team for periods, you know, and we had those chances. Ryan Thomas hit the post and we had a couple of other chances, ended up 0-0. So it's not a bad start, you know, to go away from home. And then it just started, you know, the professionalism of those countries. You know, I remember our flight, and we actually had a charter. We flew to Chile, I think, and then got a charter flight to take us from there to Peru, which was supposed to be a quick, direct jump across to there. And they ended up, we took off, landed, and they started talking around, the airspace and you can't do this. And it took us ages to get to there. And then we landed in Peru, and then it took us an hour to get off the plane. And then we had to get on a bus, and the bus was driving 5K. So it was just horrendous to get to the hotel, like through customs and everything. Was just they'd done a good job. And then we're at the hotel, and everything. There was some. I mean, yeah, I remember waking up night before the game, 3 a.m., with the loudest explosion. Like, oh, whoa, what was that? You know, like you sit in bed and you go, what was that? And then it goes off again. And I open the curtains, and this firework literally explodes 10 yards from me. Like, and we're all pretty high on this hotel. I think we had a floor, maybe like floor 14, 15 up. And I'm sort of looking down, and I can see in the middle of the road, bearing in mind the police have shut the road, there's a van parked and there's 4 or 5 guys with these fireworks. And I'm looking down there, I can see all the police, and they're just lighting these fireworks, and they're exploding outside our window, all over our windows. And that went on, and then stopped, and then 2 hours later it started. Yeah, it was I thought it was funny, but I wasn't playing. It was quite. I think I was videoing it. And it was quite. And then the next day, I remember we were walking, and this jet plane came from nowhere, and the noise of a proper jet plane, and it came past our hotel, and it sort of banked. You could hear it coming from a long way away. You could hear it. The noise was unbelievable, and it came to our hotel, and it sort of banked in front of our hotel like that. And underneath was the Peru flag, and they got photos of the pilot with his shirt on, Peru shirt, and the noise was unbelievable. This was the day of the game when the players were trying to sleep. Like they sort of made sure, and then from there to the stadium was just crazy. Like they just lined the streets and people lying on the floor, not letting us drive, and it was pretty crazy. I mean, there was one. I think it was the day before the game where you always have your -1 session at the stadium, and again we're training at whatever time, so you prepare to train at that time, and we're driving on the bus, and the bus driver's being funny again, like taking his time. Well, have we gone this way? And we drive into the stadium. He crashed the bus. He crashed the bus into the stadium. Like, I don't know if that's on purpose, but like we ended up sitting on the bus for probably half an hour because he'd driven it and it hit something and we couldn't get out the door. It was like, really, this is crazy, wow. And just the trainings. I think the day before that, we'd gone to a training session that was supposed to be private. They're supposed to be private, and it was just the most wide open pitch you could imagine, and there was thousands of kids there, and it was surrounded by apartments, and you could just see people like they were just like, what do you do?
This kind of shithousery kind of puts into context like the stakes and like how hard it is to get to the World Cup, and I'm using that in the context of what's the different challenge that is coming up, right? And it's 2 games in New Zealand against Oceania opposition versus just this impossible task across the other side of the world in Peru. Wild, right?
It's it's a great avenue for us. Obviously, the changes that's happened, it makes it a lot easier. You look back and go Mexico, Peru, Costa Rica, and we haven't been able to get past those games. So we've missed those World Cups because it's pretty tough games against good opposition. And now, in each of those moments, we had one OFC to get to that game. Now we've just got to win OFC, which is a lot easier. We know that. We're not taking it for granted. We know that it's a game of football and that anything can happen within a game. So we've just got to make sure that we do our jobs, and we know that we should win. If everything goes to plan, it would take something pretty awry for us to not win these games. But we know it's a game of football, so we're not taking it easy.
But so you've had 2 World Cup campaigns, and I'm interested to learn a little bit more about your US experience with Colorado. So we'll get to that in a second, but perhaps the Peru one, hearing you retell the stories, those will probably help you should you make the World Cup in the USA around those big experiences and preparing for big matches. But what do you glean from the Qatar campaign, or what are some of the learnings you can take out of that campaign against Costa Rica?
Yeah, I mean, I look back at Costa Rica game. I think we were really unlucky. I think it was maybe one of the best we've played. Best games we've played, and obviously there's the disappointment of the early goal, which is, when you look back at it and really analyse it, it's a little bit unlucky. It's, it shouldn't happen, you shouldn't get there. And then actually the way it ends up going in the goal is a ricochet backwards and forwards off of Nando, and it bobbles into the corner. So 1 minute in, we're 1-0 down, which was disappointing. But then we came back and played, had good chances. And then we've got this disallowed goal, which, I still think was a wrong decision. You got the sending off and just more chances, that we had. Ultimately, we weren't successful, but that really hurt, that moment, and everybody afterwards felt the same. And I think we talked about, and the players talked about, obviously Winnie was there, it was his last game really. Winnie talked about, remember this feeling, remember this, because we never want to feel like this again. Next time we get a chance, this is not going to happen again.
Conversely, have you had conversation with like John Adsid and Kevin Fallon and Ricky Herbert, who have been coaches that have qualified New Zealand to a World Cup, about what that might feel like or what to expect? Or
the way we work, wherever we are in the world, we try and connect with All Whites Whakapapa, bring people in to the environment that have ex-All Whites, ex-coaches, New Zealanders, wherever we are around the world. We when we were in Hamilton, quite recently, yourself came in, I know, but Ricky Herbert came in and spent lunch with us and sat talking for us for a while. Alan Jones came in. And
do you bring Shay in to do a little talk?
I just sat quietly.
Yeah. You coming for dinner?
He came in for lunch and dinner.
There you go. I did a double.
It was a day off that day. I was able to do what I needed to.
The boys were pleased to see you, though.
Yeah, they all wrote a letter, actually.
Yeah.
And Bay signed it as well.
Yeah.
There'll be people listening to this that don't know the football background. Like, why the fuck is Seamus coming in and being part of the All Whites prep?
Yeah.
So, I'm going to the World Cup, mate. I haven't told you about it yet, but if we qualify, I'm there.
Yeah.
Chief Morale Officer.
We need to learn as much as we can from the history, from what's been good, what's been bad, the moments that worked really well and the times that, haven't, so that we can correct them and make sure that we're successful this time.
So that next cycle, Danny, takes the team, your assistant, and then he chooses not to reapply for the job. And they kind of go to market, right? And it's a bit of a mess. I think John Herdman was tipped to have it, and then he wasn't. And Des Buckingham was in there, and there's all these names. And then there was interim Bays, who's there. And it's kind of like, well, it's the natural fit. Like there's all this kind of speculation about who, but then you've got this guy there who knows all the players intimately and has been with them for 10 years and has roots in the community. And then it's your job. Like, was it hard for you? Was it an easy decision to apply for the job in the first place?
It was a weird time. This is coming off the back of the disappointment of Costa Rica, and because we were convinced that we would win that and go to the World Cup, and everything had a plan. So that was really disappointing. And then obviously the review stuff happened, and the review, there was a lot of good stuff in the review. That happened, and I was always conscious of there's been so much good work done in the environment in regards to the culture and the playing style. And there was a lot of good work done over the past few years with Danny. And I felt like that shouldn't just be like thrown away, and whoever's in charge, you constantly want to build anyway. Danny would have constantly built on what was there, but there was so much good stuff going on that I'd been part of. So I originally wasn't looking to stay. A lot of people were saying you should apply and stuff. And I was like, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure what I wanted to do. Should I go back to America? So I was having conversations at home around what next, because as you know, New Zealand's limited opportunities to be in my line of work unless you go into the amateur game and do, the local clubs, which I sort of never really wanted to do, especially when you've worked at a professional level like MLS and internationally. It's a tough one to go backwards that far. So I rang Danny and said, I'm thinking of applying, and sort of said, these are my reasons. I don't want to leave the country again. I've tried that. I've done that. It's, it's not somewhere, I don't want to go back to America right at this stage. Thinking of throwing my hat in and just seeing where it goes. And so I did. And then we got into that whole, the media around the other options that there were. And I interviewed. I quite enjoyed the process, and everyone sort of kept saying to me, like, are you not annoyed that, they keep talking about this person, that person? And I was like, no, not really. This is football. You just go through the process, and I was lucky enough to be around, and the players knew me. And, when those games came around for the China in March, and New Zealand Football asked me to sort of carry on in an interim role, it was cool. It was a real honour. It made sense, for the players as well, and the continuity. So pretty much throughout that whole process, I just kept my head down, carried on working, and carried on enjoying it. I was like, if I get this opportunity, I'm just going to enjoy it. I brought in some good people. Simon Elliott came in and Mossy came in, and we still had Rory and Sons and everyone. So we had a good group of staff. We've got good players. We've got really good players. So that the China stuff went really well. It was a good, obviously the first game we didn't win. We would have won that game, had Tommy not got sent off, which, I don't blame him. It was a moment. But then we won the second game at Westpac and down in Wellington and played pretty well that day. And, that probably helped. I was lucky enough to get that opportunity as a sort of trial, I suppose, of a game and how the environment was. So that was lucky for me. But, I sort of still just let them get on with the process. And if they were going to talk to somebody, it's like when you're in football, you get this transfer speculation. Are they going to sign this player or that player? Okay, if they don't get that player, they buy this player. And so I was just like, whatever happens, happens, and I'll just get on. I still had the Under-20 World Cup to go to, and as well, which had gone to Argentina, which was really cool. So I had that to look forward to. And yeah, I always knew, I always felt like it was, John's great, Des is great, Ufuk's great, some good names as options. But I sort of always felt like my history with the players and the relationship and trust build-up that I'd had over a number of years gave me a different advantage. Everyone's got their strengths and stuff, and everyone's got, I should be the coach because of this. And I sort of never said that, but that continuity of relationships that was built, I think really helped me.
It's not unusual within sport as well for people within a framework to then ascend to the top job. We've seen it historically with the All Blacks here in New Zealand with Steve Hansen and then Ian Foster and your favourite team, Liverpool, as well. You talk about the backroom staff and the succession of managers there. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's normal in football, and in sport. And, for a lot of people, most head coaches come from being an assistant coach or an under-20 head coach. Gareth Southgate was under-20 head coach, under-21 for England, and then got the job. Even you look at Ufuk, who was assistant coach at Sydney before he ended up getting the head coach at Wellington. So everyone's got this sort of role. And whilst at a higher level in Colorado and the All Whites, I'd always been an assistant, I'd been a head coach for 10 years from regards to under-17 World Cups, under-20 World Cups. The under-20 World Cup here in New Zealand was massive. So I always felt like maybe some people thought I was an assistant coach. Well, that was a job. I can do that. But I'd also, at the same time, been a head coach, but I hadn't been a head coach of Colorado or Wellington Phoenix as such. But we'd been a head coach of the under-20s at World Cups, and been around the All Whites for a long, long time. So I felt like I had experience of the All Whites environment, but being a head coach as well, and I felt like that was good for me.
And it's landed you in a pretty remarkable position, because here we are a week out from 2 games which can send the All Whites to the World Cup, like the best chance we have of qualifying ever.
Yeah.
And now you're on the doorstep of coaching New Zealand at a World Cup. Like you must just be so filled with excitement. There's a little bit of pressure there, but like, what a position to be in.
Amazing. It's an honour and it's a real privilege, the position I'm in. I'm just so lucky that we've got good players. We've got really good players, and not just technically good players, but they're just good buggers, good human beings, good Kiwis, with great attitudes. So that's why, a lot of people keep asking me, are you stressing? Are you stressing about these games? And I'm not. Because I trust our players. I know we'll turn up, everyone will do their jobs, and we'll be successful. We know we have to, manage the game and certain situations around the game that could happen. But I'm not feeling too nervous at this point. I just know, not just Woodsy, but the guys with Libby, Marco, Joe Bell, Eli, Tyler Bindon. So many players we can name that you just go, man, we can trust these guys. They're going to go and perform and win these games for us.
You've got, I think, 60 players or something on your radar. I think we asked previous All Whites coaches on this podcast before, like, what is Monday to Friday, or what does actually a week look like? Because you've got such limited physical contact time with the players, but what do you do to fill your time?
Well, we're office-based, so we do a lot of preparation around making sure that everything for the upcoming camp is ready and organised and our processes are in place. But, the monitoring and scouting, I watch a lot of football. What does that actually look like? If you had to put a number on it, details. That's hard to do.
Do you watch it on double speed? Because we listen to a lot of podcasts and we pop it on double speed.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that. I have to watch a game. Yeah. And I even hate watching recorded games. Yeah. So I end up watching stupid o'clock games like the English games. I don't know. I'd average at a weekend 6-7 games, but then you got all the highlights. And I'm very lucky as well. We've got a really good analyst, Logan, at the All Whites, and so any game that happens around the world, almost any game, because right now we can't get the Greek Greek games, but almost any game in the world.
Sorry, McGarry. Is it McGarry?
Yeah. Marco Stamets.
Oh, yeah.
We can get footage. We can get all the games. So I'll get every morning. I get all the results. So I know we've got the apps where I know every player, if they played, sub, came on, scored, whatever they did, I can find out straight away if I haven't watched the game live. Then I can say to Logan, okay, I need to see clips of Sarpreet, Callum McCall, Eli Just, Nico Kerwin, and Max Crocombe. And he'll put together these. He'll go to the Y Scout stuff, take all their actions, clip it a little bit so it's not just the simple passing sort of from A to B, and put together like a 6-minute video. 6-ish minute video of all their actions, all their most key actions from all those games. So I can watch almost everything that everybody's doing all the time, which sounds a bit weird, but it's it's the only way really you can truly monitor and have those conversations. So when I speak to a player, then I can say, I can actually say, I have been watching. I do know that, you've played this many minutes, you've scored these many goals, or you've not had this or done that. And so I watch a lot of football.
And in the past, we've turned over or good players have turned up through eligibility. Is that something that you actively do, or that is actively done through a network?
It's it's something that everybody's doing. Like all the countries are sort of actively doing that, and especially in this part of the world around the Oceania, they're all sort of now in that field of looking. I mean, there's stuff that's gone out around, are you eligible for New Zealand? But that's mainly for the younger players, mainly for the age group players. We don't actively go looking at the All Whites level, but we do get communications from players, from parents, from clubs saying, I think I might be eligible and I'm interested. And we follow that up and see if that's true or not, and it doesn't always work. Mostly we know everybody, and we have got a real, good wider squad of depth now.
Because I imagine potentially with the World Cup on the horizon as well, that more players then might start putting their hand up and going, actually, by the way, I've got a grandparent here that...
It's it's not as easy as that. It is complicated in regards to FIFA eligibility, but also then, you have to hold a New Zealand passport. So it's not quite... The stories of my granddad was from there, so I can play for you, aren't factual. It is quite complicated, and we always say to a player, do you feel Kiwi? Is it, do you want to play for New Zealand? Do you want to represent New Zealand if you're going to go down this path? Because it's not easy for people to go through and get passports. It's a government thing.
It's a weird job, being All Whites coach, because you're watching clips of players playing over the other side of the world. Like, I know it's different watching videos of someone than being at the game and seeing all the different angles and what's going on. And then also you've got these huge games, but you actually only get the team together for like one training session before it.
Yeah.
So you've got all of this prep, but then like you can actually only do the core coaching with the group for like a few days before these big games. Like, it's bizarre, right?
It is a bit weird. And people don't really understand that. I was on a course last week, actually, with high-performance coaches around different sports, and they were intrigued because they were asking, like, so you coaching today? No, I don't coach. Really, I do limited coaching. We get the players, so every year there's 5 windows. I was having to explain this to people because they couldn't really understand it. So we get 5 windows because people think, just have a camp. Can you just call them back?
Yeah.
We get 5 windows. Those windows are normally 10 days long. And we can't coach the players any time apart from those windows, and the clubs then have to release them for those windows. But if we have a game here in New Zealand, like March, if a player's club playing on Sunday, they can't fly till Monday, and then you've got a 24, 26-hour flight, and the time difference means for this next window, we won't get players here till Wednesday. And we're playing Friday night.
So how do you build culture? Is obviously like every coach we talk to is the most important thing is culture. How do you build culture with a team that gets together so rarely?
Yeah, we've really gone down that route. And I think the key now for us is consistency. So we don't change style of play much. So we've got a really embedded style of play now, which is we've worked through with the players.
Get the ball to Woodsy.
Pretty much. And so we don't change a lot, and the culture is really strong. When you bring these guys together, it's the best. The best moments of tour are seeing these lads come into camp. Look, you're smiling because you know that.
Yeah.
When they come into camp and they greet each other, because you think we've got players that, you know, are Kiwis and they're living in different parts of the world on their own. Some of them living on their own, you know, without other Kiwis around them, no family, some of them with partners, and, you know, whether it's Denmark, Sweden, Portugal, Italy, England, America, you know, all around. And then they come together and it's like a family reunion. It's an amazing time. It's great to see. And they just gel straight away. And our job as coaches is to ensure that the environment is conducive for that. So the way we set up our environments is just really conducive to, you know, really bring out this connection.
That's a really good point, because like it can be quite a lonely game being a professional footballer. Like we talked about Woodsy at the start of his career. There's other, you know, Kiwis all over the world going through that journey themselves. Yeah. So I guess coming together is that kind of community in a way, that support. Is there like a team WhatsApp group that everyone's firing into as well?
Yeah, I mean, they've got groups, and then it sort of changes per tour so that we can get information out to them. But all the players would say that they just love coming back to camp, and that's good. We've created this environment where they just love coming to. You know, they love representing New Zealand for one, but they love coming back to. And like I say, we set up this environment where there's thousands of mini collisions, we call them, which people interact in, you know, all day, every day. And it's our job to help connect them to each other, help to connect them back to New Zealand, you know, through the culture and the history, and connect the staff to the players and the campaign plan and the style of play. It's a cool process, you know, but like I say, in this next tour, we'll have 3 training sessions, 2 games. 2 of those training sessions are -1 sessions, which are 60-minute limited. So we do need to be really super clear and concise with detail, and not complicate it, keep it simple, so the players know what their roles and responsibilities are on the pitch.
Do you still have to sing a song if it's your first tour?
Yep. That's not my rule. That's
our rule. I just wanted to make sure that was still in operation, in play.
Yeah. I remember I did mine back in 2014.
What song did you go for?
I did a bit of Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
I actually...
My Way?
I did Strangers in the Night.
I tested it in Hamilton because I got invited in, and I messaged and I said, am I going to have to sing a song?
Yeah.
And the message came back, nah, bro, you did your song ages ago. Yeah. Don't even worry about it. But I just wanted, you got to check to see whether these things still exist.
I mean, it's a player's rule. The players always bring it. If there's a new player, like we try not to, but by the end, the players are always, and they're calling someone up.
It's the opposite.
That's the worst for a new player. That's the worst noise. You hear that?
How did Gillian go? Was he the last one to the last new one?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he went really well. He's a super confident kid. Yeah, he sang.
What song?
Oh man, I can't remember.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, but no, it's one of those things where everyone hates it, and then when you've done it, you go, oh.
Yeah, and you can't wait for the next one.
And you never have to do it again. And so their rules are you sing once, you're done, and you never have to sing down. So if you sing for the All Whites, because the 20s and 23s, they do it as well. But once you're done at the All Whites, you don't have to sing again.
Docs are always the ones that when a new doctor comes in, it's kind of
like, I do what?
I can imagine the answer to this might be we're just going to focus on these next 2 games.
Yeah, but of course it is.
If we could move past that and say we are qualified for the World Cup, are you thinking about that? Are you thinking about what a measure of success would be? What to grade yourself on?
Just got straight on that. I mean, that's true. We are. Everything's on these games, and we're not getting carried away. But yes, we know. We want to go to a World Cup and do well. You know, we want to go to a World Cup and not just attend. You know, what they did last time by being unbeaten was unbelievable. The challenge is get out of the group, get into the knockout phase. You know, and if you talk to the players, that's their goal. That's what they want to do. That's our goal. Get to the World Cup, qualify for the World Cup, and get into the knockout phase.
Are you, again, not getting too far ahead of ourselves, blah, 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 but like the groundswell of support and the health of football in New Zealand, especially with what Auckland's doing, is if we qualify for the World Cup and we've got that to look forward to, like it's just going to be a wave, right? Like it's just ride the wave.
Yep, I reckon. Football is on that trajectory. It's the most played sport now in New Zealand. Auckland have added to that. The derby coming up is amazing. Auckland top of the league is it's really putting football there. Woodsy, what he's doing. We know to keep helping change the game, we need to qualify for the World Cup, and then we need to go there and do well. And just keep trying to change the game or keep trying to change the perception of football here in the country in regarding funding and media, because it's the biggest participation sport.
And you've got Norway on the horizon. Those sorts of matches obviously must help in terms of raising that profile. And you talk about limited connections that you have. So international contacts are crucial.
They're amazing games. That'll be a great game, and there'll be another game in that window against another good team, which will hopefully come out soon. Actually, weirdly, playing in Europe is a bit easier for us because most of those players they'll be there Monday morning. Because it's closer. It's tougher for us to get there, and tougher for the Phoenix Auckland A-League players to go to Europe, obviously for the travel. But most of our squad will be there. We'll be together for longer, actually, when we're in Europe. So those sort of windows are a little bit easier.
Taking us inside the dressing room, we've had some All Blacks coaches and people talking about how there's no team talks on game day. That's, if you get to game day and you don't know what your job is or the message is, then you're not prepared right. What's your style? Are you doing a rah-rah team talk before everyone goes out? Is that just the players doing it on their own?
Not really. Same sort of thought process. If we're scrambling to give information on game day, then, we haven't done our job, beforehand. So game day actually for us as coaches is the easiest day. We always set aside time in the morning. So if you look at the schedule, there'll be a period in the morning where we'll put aside an hour and it's open. If anyone wants to come and talk about anything tactically or anything, we'll be sat here drinking coffee. Me, Simon and Tony and Goffey normally sitting in this place. Anyone wants to come and ask questions or have a conversation around anything, this is on game day, they come. So normally within that hour, we might get 1, 2, sometimes none that will come and have a chat about. We'll have the whiteboard and some video in case, people ask questions. I'm just thinking defensively, where do you want me to? And we can talk through those things. So it's available for them if they want it. But game day, we'll mostly let them just prepare themselves how they want to prepare. And then we don't do a meeting. I'll literally talk 30 seconds before we go out. Yeah, probably just that last little reminder maybe, or probably just that last little pull on the heartstrings maybe.
And what about the strategy for the halftime team talk? Are you thinking you got a bollocking in your locker? Is it sort of very measured and you've got a strategy, you leave them have 10 minutes to themselves and you go for the last 5?
I mean, every game's different. So whilst we have a plan for every halftime, we have to wait and see what the game gives us. I'm very lucky. Then we've got a really good analyst, like I say, and then our process is I'll be sat in the first half. I'll be sat with Simon Elliott and Goffey on the bench. Tony Reddings goes upstairs and watches from high for the first half. So he's in comms with Simon Elliott throughout the first half with information of what's going on. We're able to sort of get messages to say that clip, we need to see that clip at half time. So we're able to get detail, data and video clips from the analyst, and then so probably 5 minutes before halftime we start building what we're going to talk about. We're going to need 2 clips on pressing, and then that clip where we did this, and we need to show the players that one because we need to be better second half at doing that. So we'll have these clips organised, and Tony's really good working with Logan, and then we'll come down. The players normally, I let them normally have 3 or 4 minutes, where they're sitting down, recovering, getting their drinks, and there's always some conversations going on, which is gold. The players actually maybe sorting things out themselves is great. And then I'll come in, and every game's different. I haven't had to.
Have you got one in your locker?
I have. But no, it's different now. These guys are great. We actually need we don't need to motivate them so much. Sometimes there's some tweaks for the tactics that will help for the second half. So we're either trying to fix something or help adjust something or motivate. They're probably the key things. And then we've always got some, not always, sometimes we don't need to show video clips, like the Samoa game. Actually, we did show clips of the Samoa game of how we can actually, not try and play in certain areas because of the way they were defending. But yeah, every game's probably a little bit different. But we've got good processes to work through so that we can just get detailed to the players to be better second half.
I gather at Taylor's wedding you almost did a halftime team talk style for your speech. Did you have Tony Reddings up on high surveying things and get some video clips ready?
Yeah. And because I did a wedding speech. I did sort of say around that, I'm going to do a halftime speech. But then I had longer than 15 minutes.
Yeah, 25 or something like that.
I think some people are like, we've got to go out and play. Don't give me one of these microphone things. Don't do it, because I end up talking or singing, talking for too long. So it was, the wedding was a super proud moment. Obviously, your daughter getting married to Reed. Reed's a top lad, great family. And, I'd known Reed before Taylor. That was part of, I suppose, my speech. I coached Reed in the old NTCs and, as he was sort of growing up at the age of 14, 15. And he was part of the under-17s and under-20s, and I hadn't picked him. I didn't pick him. He was a good player back then, but he was a bit of a late developer. I remember speaking to the mum and dad, and I probably said this in my wedding speech again. I remember talking to Paul and Liz years ago around Reed and some of the decisions, and that he's going to be a really good player. He's a bit of a late developer, and he was. He's a good player. But I sort of wish I'd picked him now. I feel a bit bad.
Maybe absolute bolter for the World Cup. for the World Cup.
God. Yeah, he. I think it's tough for him sometimes. Obviously, he's in football, and he married Taylor, and he's a great lad. But yeah, I'm sure he cops a bit of stick at times of because I'm around, and I love going watching him. So there's another game I'll probably watch at the weekends. Go and watch Western Springs, and in between Premier League and MLS and A League, catch a Northern League game.
That's a weird thing about the New Zealand football situation, right? That the All Whites coach just pops up at local club games. Is it? Do you get a bit of punishing chat from people around the place?
I remember I was at a game last year and I was watching Western Springs up on the balcony and watching, and I had. Taylor was there and Reed's mum and dad were there, and somebody started saying to me, "Why are you here? Like, surely you're not scouting?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm just watching the game." "Yeah, but why?" And then I'd say, like, my son-in-law's playing. I'm here to watch him. Like, I love watching football because if they're not playing, I'd go at Birkenhead or Auckland City or Eastern Suburbs. So I'd go and watch a game anyway, like I always have. And I'm not saying I'm scouting, but you're just constantly watching players, especially because the under-20s as well. There's players play for the under-20s that, and I'm in contact with Greenie, so he's in Wellington, and, I sometimes are watching, if I'm watching a Western Springs or Auckland City, I'm sometimes watching the younger players to give feedback for Greenie of this kid did really well or what. So, yeah, I think it's good to get around, but mostly, if I'm honest, I'm going to go and watch him.
I'm going to start
because I never had boys. Two girls.
Yeah. And that's why I think Jude is it's an interesting addition as well. You've. I'm not saying you've got that son. You've got that grandson now as well, which is a different dynamic.
I see Reed keeps throwing him a little fluffy football, and he's sort of baby, and he's kicking it away, and he thinks he's left-footed, but I'm not sure.
I'm going to start wrapping us up, but this is going to be released, like I said, on the week leading into the games. What's the message to listeners who might think about why should I come? Like this, the home support, right, is pretty key.
It's massive. We've got players playing all around the world, and they're in great leagues, a lot of them, and they just are so committed to come back and represent in New Zealand, and they love coming here. It's an enormous travel for a lot of them, and it's not easy travel for a lot of them as well. So they just love coming back and playing in front of the fans. So yeah, come and see the guys, come and support us. We do need the help. We know these games are games that are a little bit different. It's not Peru. It's not the Bahrain type scenario, but it's still, the reward is the same. You win these games, you go to a World Cup, the same as Bahrain. You win that game, you go to the World Cup. And, hopefully it's a nice sort of couple of games, but, football is sometimes not like that. We've got to make sure that we ensure that we uncover every stone, make sure that detailed preparation is, and we're doing exactly the same as what we did for Mexico, USA, for Republic of Ireland, Greece, all those games we've played over the last sort of year. We're preparing the same in depth that we have for all of our other games. We are for Fiji, and, then we'll do the same for the next game.
Do you have moments, like this is probably the most you've ever spoken about your career, but like reflecting on where you've come from and like this kind of snowball that's landed you, on the doorstep of taking the All Whites to the World Cup?
I mean, you've sort of taken me back. I don't tend to dwell too much, and it feels like a long time ago. There are some nice memories. So you've actually taken me back to think back to some of those times, which has been pretty cool. I don't tend to talk too much, and people probably remember me for being an old, slow, pretty rubbish player for the Knights and stuff like that. But a long time back, I was all right. It's great to look back on. I'm very proud, and the Knights was really important actually, because when I left England, I was on about 460 appearances, and I played 40 games for the Knights, so that tipped me over 500, which was like quite cool. I was quite proud to sort of get to that sort of stage. Good to look back on. And now it's, the game's moved, the game's changed. I'm not sure I'd be good enough to play now, but it was what it was, and I had my career and did what I did, and now I'm excited by this group of players that I work with now. Is so exciting. They're so young. We've obviously got your older players, Woodsy, Boxy, Costa, Tommy, a couple of like mid-rangers, Payne and Rufa and them guys, but this group, younger group, I still call Libby and Joe Bell's age group young. I mean, they're 24-ish now. But that 99, now we're talking about 05s. Tyler Binnen's an 05. It's crazy. Yeah. But that group, man, they're exciting, and they could be together. A lot of them could be together for the next 10, 12 years. They could do 3 World Cups as a group going through. Yeah, it's amazing.
Good time. It's a good time. It's a good time for New Zealand football. It's really exciting. Yeah. Thank you for coming in and sharing us and taking us for that stroll down memory lane. Like it's been a while. This obviously started as a football show, but it's been good to talk footy again. Yeah. So
I think you're right. Like you've gone back into Watford and Wolves. It's the same for us. I listened back to that episode with Neil way back, episode 5, and it is our roots, and it is the biggest game that's been held in New Zealand for a long, long time. Forget about who the opposition is. Exactly what you said. The reward at stake. I remember exactly where I was in 2009 against Bahrain when we qualified for a World Cup, and to be on the precipice of that again and to be the man leading that team. We've shared some very good times together over the years as well. So I wish you and the team all the very best for the match.
I appreciate that. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Baz.
Cheers.